and when they give you that high-pitched tone cry, you change it. You look for what is happening and you do it. And when they are sick, they are not able to tell you. How do you know when that baby is sick? And it's a worry to many, many, many parents. And this morning I read the weather. It was around 22 degrees Celsius, very warm throughout the night, and so the heat and all that. During the day it increased, and currently we are speaking, it's around 34 degrees, and it's very hot, very, very hot. And the winds are very dry. It means that you're taking a lot of moisture from your skin, and so you might get dehydrated. How about that little baby, that little godfather you have? They are the small ones. And so this afternoon we are dedicating our show to the small ones, the little ones, and we are trying to find out what bothers them, especially around this time. What possible infections are we talking about? What possible diseases could they be afflicted by? And then we are also talking about what you can do to keep them comfortable around this time when there's so much heat, how to keep them hydrated, and what to look out for. So I would say it's for the mothers, it's for the fathers as well, it's for all of us, because you might be taking care of your mother's child. Stay tuned. I'll be right back to introduce my guest, and then we have this fantastic conversation. But feel free, if you're a father, if you're a mother, and you have specific problems with your child that you need answers to, I have a doctor in the house, so you might want to send me a voice note or a WhatsApp to this number 0554 031 192. That is 0554 031 192. We are also streaming live on Facebook at LUV 99.5. So you log on to Facebook as well, drop a comment there, and I know doctor will have some answers for you. I'll be right back after this break, and we'll get it started. This is the diary.
You see, today, there are plenty 419 on the market. Then beware if you buy building material.
Fellow Ghanaians, good evening. I've come into your homes tonight on a matter of major importance for the nation and for me personally. It concerns the referendum of 17th December, whose purpose is to seek popular support for the repeal of Article 55(3) of the Constitution, a provision which currently bars political parties from involvement in district elections and local governance. On my arrival here in Jubilee House on 9th January 2017, nearly 3 years ago, I came with the firm conviction, emanating from the campaign and national discussions, that there was a national consensus for two important amendments to our governance system, which would enhance its effectiveness and accountability. One related to the possible reorganization of our regional governance structure, and the other to the potential involvement of political parties in local governance. I thought, and still think, that such reforms should be based on a broad national consensus. It was in furtherance of this and other matters that on Tuesday, 18th April 2017, a little over 4 months into my mandate, I held a meeting with my three predecessors, the first, second, and fourth presidents of the Fourth Republic, Their Excellencies Jerry John Rawlings, John Agyekum Kufuor, and John Dramani Mahama, at Jubilee House, to seek their views and counsel on these issues. I came away from that meeting with the view that there was consensus amongst us that the time had come for political parties to participate openly in district assembly elections and local governance. Indeed, amongst
who has been tormenting my life. He's some few months old, and unexpected and unexplained crying. You change the diapers, you give the breast milk, he wouldn't take it, and then he starts crying, and you don't know what is wrong with him. And that is what we're going to talk about this afternoon. It's for the kids this afternoon. So if you have a kid, pull up a chair and keep that dial right here on Love 99.5 FM. Let's have a chat. We have a doctor in the studio, and she is Dr. Sandra Kwartin Owusu, and she is a pediatric, I'll have to brief in before I pronounce this one, pulmonologist. I got that one correct? Yes, pulmonologist. Department of Child Health, Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital. So she's well versed when it comes to children. And this afternoon we are lucky to have her joining us in the studios this afternoon. Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon, Erastus.
And you're looking good.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I love African print. Your style is fantastic.
Thank you.
Any specific name for it?
I don't think there's a name. This is one very simple one.
Okay. So I guess it was inspired by my Akonta.
Yes.
So you can log on to Facebook and have a look at Doc. She's looking beautiful this afternoon. Let's start with children. So from day one that you give birth to them, what should you be looking out for? When we say kids, what are their needs right from day one?
Okay. Thank you once again, Erastus, and good afternoon to all your listeners. Thank you for having me. I think the childbearing and the preparation actually starts before they arrive. They're very special.
Yeah.
They are part of the family, but before they arrive, you could in quotes say visitors, but these are very special visitors. So some of the preparation would happen before they arrive, discussing a few things about having somebody else special to the family. If there are other children, maybe they've seen mommy and daddy preparing in terms of getting items, rearranging the room, setting up a new room for
and it takes a lot from our pockets.
Yes. But because it's a long period, 9 months, so you can save in bits, and I don't think the change should be a very big change, just to accept them. But and then the mental preparation too, because taking care of a newborn is a bit of hard work. I mean, a little more time. So you just have to be mentally prepared to receive them. And this is daddy and mommy together, because the baby is coming for the two, and maybe the other family members, the children, the siblings, and if they are extended family members too. So there's a bit of mental preparation, but otherwise when they arrive, usually would be in the hospital, which means that mommy will be away, so and daddy may have to be with her for a few days if it was a safe delivery, not surgical needed. Then maybe within the next few days you may go home with baby if baby is well, and then it starts right from there too. They start feeding right from day one when they arrive in the labor ward. Now the teaching is that we should try and establish breastfeeding as soon as possible. So if mom is in the state where she can breastfeed, then she needs to be supported to breastfeed. So feeding is so crucial for them if they are well and they can be put to their breast. So that's the first step. And then sometimes if they are very little or they came ahead of time, they are a special group. The prematures are a special group. Yes, and we tend to want to take care of them in a bit of a different way. You know, if they are very tiny, then they need to stay on the ward for a few more days to help mommy adjust and daddy also adjust. So maybe we would say they are a special group and their needs are a bit specialized. But for the ones who are born on time, we say term, and who can go home with mommy and daddy. What should happen is that the breastfeeding, we encourage that they should be breastfed on demand. So
on demand,
yes, that's when they. So when they need to be breastfed, then they breastfeed, because in the initial days they may not be able to go through the rhythm of, let's say, every 2 hours every year. So it's encouraged that if possible, breastfeed them on demand.
Some say 2 hours in interval.
Ideally, that's fine, but babies differ in their strength, so it may be a little less or it may be a little more. But I think in the next few weeks you learn what is suitable for your baby, what baby can tolerate, and then you go by the rhythm. But generally, and the mom too has to rest too. So sometimes, as you're saying, breast milk can be expressed, and then that can also support whilst mom.
It's good that way. I'll recommend it to every family.
So that's the feeding aspect is so crucial, and we encourage that all babies should be breastfed. It's so good, and in fact it's also for our pockets much yes, for the first 6 months. It's much easier, and it's recommended. The health benefits for the baby, for mom, for dad, because that can also help. And then the saving aspect too, because they tend to take lots of volumes, and breast milk is specialized in a lot of ways, so it's good in terms of the feeding. Beyond the feeding, they need to rest a lot, so you would see that they sleep a lot. But then, as I was saying,
not all of them.
They may not be able to tell the difference between day and night yet when they arrive initially. So you realize that during the day, after a good bath, they tend to sleep a lot, and then at night when you have returned from work and you are very tired, then they want to wake up and
they want to giggle, they want to throw their hands,
they want their presence, they want somebody to be with them. So you can't go to sleep, you have to be awake and help them just settle in. But mostly that doesn't take a long time. It's just that the first few weeks can be so difficult for some parents, actually
very
the moms.
stressful.
Yes, and for maternal mental health reasons, I think all family members would need to support. You know that in the old settings where our great grandmothers, although they were not so well educated, but they knew that whenever there's a newborn, the family needs help. So naturally, grandma will come, which is not bad, because any little help is good. Somebody else holding baby safely, for mom and dad to rest a little, it's good. But in the absence of an extended family member, I think that can also help. But it's a crucial moment where most people underestimate how big it is for the mother. But
it's big.
If you underestimate it, it's not good.
But some husbands will want their wife to go for 3 months, visit their
so that is an area that is debatable.
We don't want to go.
Yes, but
today is for the children.
Yes, so but the encouragement is that at least, even if mom would go, this is my opinion. I stand to be,
and I stand with you.
Yes, so I think that baby should be with dad and mom for at least a few days, 10 days, 2 weeks, so that dad can also be involved. There's a lot of time that grandma can help. For the next 5 years, grandma may even want to come into the house as often, but the first few weeks is for dad and mom. That is my opinion. I think it's helpful for them to everybody have a goal at baby, and it's not, baby is tiny, but do not be afraid to hold baby. Yes, so after the first few days, now there's paternity leave for 10 days. Yes,
10 days.
Yes, so at least that is a golden moment that I would encourage, if possible at all, that dad would spend with baby, and then mom may take a break or granny may come around. That's fine. I think the decision is for the family, and no one person may get it right, because circumstances are different for different families. Yes.
Let me go into the baby proper. Now, they do not have any sort of alarm. The only alarm they have is the crying. Can crying mean sick? When does crying mean sick?
Okay, so crying will mean sick if they are unconsolable sometimes. They are hot, they are refusing to feed, and then you know that the normal routine, usually they would cry, you pick them up, they quieten up. they continue to cry, maybe because the diaper is wet, you've changed the diaper, as you said, they've gotten, and then they are refusing to breastfeed. But you know that the time to breastfeed is now. And maybe you say, okay, let's hold on to the next breastfeeding time, and they are still refusing to feed. So that may mean that they are unwell.
Okay.
They may have a fever, so the body may feel hot, or they begin to even throw up. What they've already eaten begins to come out, or that the moment you hold them, they start crying a lot, which is not normal with babies. So crying, yes, can mean that they are unwell, and you just have to know what the normal routine is for each baby, so that then you can understand that, okay, this is not babe, this is not my Kweku, this is not my Kwabena, that I know he quietens down when I pick him, but now he's been crying all day, his body feels very hot, he's throwing up, and he's refusing to breastfeed. Poor feeding is such an important signal that they are unwell.
But sometimes you change the diapers, you feed him, he refuses to take it, and he starts crying. Cries to a certain point that you cannot console him. You don't know what is wrong with him. He's not hot. The signs are not there that he's sick, but he keeps crying for a long period to the point where you can see that he's very agitated. Then he quiets down and starts to sleep and starts to smile. What is that?
Okay, so you would know that some people talk about what is called colic, where there's like wind they have a lot of gas that they want to bring up. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of information in that area. Sometimes, when they're breastfeeding continuously, they may also, let me put it in the layman's term, swallow a little bit of gas, and so the grannies will tell you that put them to the shoulder and then pat their back, and sometimes you hear them belching. It's a big one that comes out, and then they quieten. So I think that there may be some truth in the fact that they're just uncomfortable because of maybe the way they took the breast milk down, and that is making them a bit uncomfortable, and so they may cry. And
do they get angry?
They also have their tantrums. They can't speak and say I'm angry, but they may just not be happy with you. So it's possible that they can and
it's possible
upset.
They can cry uncontrollably.
Yes, but when they are not sick. And then other times too, I think that what we have learned about children is that the process of sleeping is actually a bit more complex than we know, and so there's a lot of interactions. Interactions that go on
and ranting and all that.
So because of that, falling to sleep, those who have studied sleep very well will tell you that it's a complex process, and so that's why sometimes some babies may take they are just good during the day, but at night when they just sleep so that everybody will sleep, and then they are all over the place and they will not keep quiet. But we need to understand them that it's a bit of a complex process. Some families would opt to give them the last bath a bit late so that it helps. That bathing them down is good. And it helps them quieting up, and then they have their last meal, they get bathed, and then they can fall to sleep. It may work for some babies, it may not work for some babies, but I think that the central thing to all this is for you to know your baby and for you to be calm. So don't say, oh, why are you crying so much? Shaking them is not good for years. So if you vigorously shake them, it can affect the brain, as we have learned. So you just need to know that they are comfortable and safe, and then be calm when they are crying. Sometimes be calm, be with them. Don't shake them, don't be angry with them. Just maybe hold their hands or put them around your shoulder and just allow them. They would settle down eventually if truly they are not sick. So I think it's a process that we all need to understand that it will take a while, but eventually they settle. Most babies by month 4 they've settled down. So
I know that babies, for a mother to know what is happening with the baby is quite instinctive, but then how do you differentiate between normal crying and crying that is associated with something? How do you know as a mother? So also, yes, as you said, the instincts would usually guide you, but then
they skip the meals. They will refuse the breast milk. As you said, you've changed the diet.
That should be continuous.
And it's continuous. So they are crying excessively. Sometimes it may be that there's a joint that is swollen, even a scratch, something, a bump somewhere. In the days where malaria was a big thing, sometimes they've just been bitten by lots of mosquitoes. They're coming down with malaria. People have also talked about when they have tooth eruption. So to an extent, I think I agree. Even, we say age 40 when your wisdom tooth is
it's highly
painful. And it's painful. So yes, they may be in pain. That is why they are crying. But I think that at the end of the day, if you know your baby behaves like this, breastfeeds well, when you change the diaper they quieten down, and then there's one day that nothing seems to work, I think you need to just seek advice from a medical person.
It's 34 degrees Celsius this afternoon. It's been warm for the past 2 weeks. Any dangers for children?
Yes, some dangers for children. So the first thing is that, as you're saying, when the temperatures go up, it's very humid, then we tend to get dehydrated. So we in the tropics, our skin color is because of where we live, and so it's good. The skin does a lot of work. It's a main barrier when it comes to heat protection. The skin has a way of
have a lot of melanin.
Yes, a way of regulating the temperatures. But when it is so high, naturally all of us will feel dehydrated, especially for children. Around this time, most of the schools will close, and they're waiting for their parents to pick them, and they are busy playing under the sun. They sweat a lot, so they're losing a lot of water and obviously some electrolytes too. So yes, the risk of getting dehydrated, and sometimes you even have the burn. We have sunburns also. Our skin is dark, so sometimes we may not appreciate it, but yes, there are a lot of dangers when you are exposed prolonged periods to the sun when the temperatures are so high. So risk of dehydration, risk of getting burns. You see that your skin also gets cracked up, so the integrity, the skin, the barrier integrity sometimes get broken, and so that is also a risk for other organisms that naturally are on the skin, that we wash them away when we bath, to also get inside. So they go beyond the layer where we see and penetrate where they're likely to potentially cause harm, infection to us.
So infection could be rife at this point?
It's possible. So apart from the skin, so if you have any broken skin, then organisms that live on the skin could enter, and the risk of skin infections possible. Also the mucosa, so inside your nostrils, your nose, and then your mouth also, that it tends to be red, so we call it the mucosa. And particularly in our nostrils, so all of us, we have organisms that live in our nostrils. It's natural. Yes, they are there for a reason. So they are also important for, I would say, ecosystem. Let me just use it. Yes,
some sort of symbiotic relationship.
Yes. But then when your nostrils get so dry and cracked up, and the mucous membrane is broken, the integrity is no longer as it's supposed to be, then they get the chance to go into, let's say, the bloodstream, and or be moved down into the lower airways. So the nasal cavity, the airways have a filter. The airways have a filter, so some environmental particulate matter would not go down to the very low airways. It's a filter, and very tiny organism or particulate matter will not go so low. However, when the integrity is disturbed, then some of the organisms and even noxious substances around environmental
is that the reason for flu at this time?
Yes, that's a contributing factor. So some that you are already not immune to would get the chance. And you see that there's also a lot of dust that is carried around, and so some of the organisms are carried around and in spores. So when we inhale them to the already dry and cracked nostrils, then they get a chance to go in and then we can have. So mostly you'd find that we have a lot of common colds around this time. Everybody, your nostrils get dry, and then in the morning you start sneezing a lot and coughing a lot. And it's also the same for the children. So you see that they tend to have a lot of common cold, catarrh around this time because of the changes in the weather condition.
What can we do? Because then cough is common, the flu-like symptoms are common. They say there is no medicine for flu, and then it gets to spread around quickly. So if you have children sleeping, on the same bed or in the same room, you get to spread it around quickly. Any remedy?
I think that we would start from being well hydrated. So let's drink lots and lots of water. Remind the children when they are going to school, if we used to give them 500 ml of water, you need to go up
get a bigger bottle.
Yes, so maybe a liter, and encourage them to drink. So children love to play and they may forget to drink. So when they are leaving home, kindly remind them to drink a lot more water before.
And the teachers should also help us.
Yes, and then as soon as you pick them from school, if you can, I usually would even carry water from home because I'm thinking that by the time I get there, what they took is finished or it's just become too hot itself. So I encourage them as soon as I pick them up, I tell them try and drink something so that you are well hydrated. So hydration is good. It's good for the whole body, including the mucous membrane and the skin as well. And then we also need, I know it's not very common in our part of the world, but there's what is called a barrier, the sunscreen. So this will be a good time to put on your sunscreen, because if they're going out to play, then they can put on the sunscreen and they can wear.
So by sunscreen, some of us lay people.
So it's a cream. It's a cream that you just.
Can we use Nkuto common?
Yes, yes.
As
it's
a sunscreen.
Good, yes,
okay.
it's good. So just to make sure that in the morning we are rushing, but it will be good to remind yourself that they are likely to lose more than usual. So yes, this is a good time.
Spread some cream.
Yes, shea butter.
My normal cocoa butter.
Yes. Just make sure that you put enough on the skin, and then if there's any broken area, maybe you need to cover it appropriately, dress it up properly. Don't just leave it, because that will be your potential source of all kinds of organisms entering. And then the nostrils. So if they have a common cold and it's severe, you can just let them take a rest. Good rest for a day or two would be fine. And also a lot of fruits and vegetables.
Children do not like fruits.
Yes,
they don't like vegetables.
I know, but
how can you
explore?
Yes,
so yesterday I realized that the pineapples, when I cut it up, they refused to take. So I did a smoothie, and then everybody came rushing. So those are other ways we can explore. But yes, encourage them to take in more fruits around this time, and then vegetables also, carrots, the green lettuce, and all that would help, because it promotes your immunity so that you can withstand some of these infections, like viral infections. And if they come down with the temperature, then they need antipyretics, something like paracetamol.
Okay.
It's also helpful. As for going to school, you cannot, they will share the viruses anyway, but they also need to develop their immune system. So I don't think we should run away from, I don't want to get a cold. If it's an outbreak of flu, then that's something else. But the common colds that they tend to get when they go to school should not be a major problem. However, it's also an important time for people to be aware. So especially the ones who are born premature. Some of them have just been discharged and gone home. So they have extra needs. So it's an important time that if you had a premature baby, because of the risk of viral infections, that you need to be extra alert. Do your visits, your doctor checkups well, so that you can be alert, and then you don't overlook. I think the general message is do not overlook anything can happen. Also that around Christmas is also the time where we have a lot of cases of meningitis. So, and all because of what I was saying, that some of these organisms live in our nostrils and naturally do not cause problems for us, but when the integrity of the mucous membrane is broken, also some of these organisms may get a chance.
How does it get broken?
Because it's dry and cracked.
Okay.
Yes, so it's dry and
So
cracked.
what can I do to prevent it from drying?
I think you're just keeping yourself hydrated and making your immunity stable by taking your fruits and vegetables. But if it does happen, so I know unfortunately about 4 years ago, there was one mom whose son was not well, and then she thought, oh, it's one of those fevers. Took him to school. School called her, please come for him, and she kept him around. Didn't immediately seek help, and then later on we realized that it was meningitis that the child had. So some of these conditions, persistent headache that you give your paracetamol 2 days and it's still the same, you need to seek medical help. And for those with chronic conditions, even asthma, you know, the dust itself is a trigger.
Yeah.
So being overly exposed to dust around this time, so parents should just be alert. If your child has a condition that could be made worse by the environmental exposure such as the dust, then this is a good time to just be alert. Make sure your child is taking their medicines as prescribed by your doctor. If it's a time for you to do your doctor's appointment, please do it. Ask all the questions that you need to ask. And I think that what we can prevent, we can. What we can't, we need to seek help for it.
And please, those schools that are within dusty areas, you might want to water the environment a bit, make it a bit suitable for kids as well. There was this mom I spoke with before coming on air, and she started talking about recurring coughs, and she was attributing it to the child going to school. She says he picked it from school, the infection from school, because before he went to school, it wasn't happening. So, but anytime he goes to school, he picks up that, comes back coughing, persistent coughing. You give antibiotics before it goes, it comes back. What could be happening?
So, as we said, when the little ones start going to school, it's something that occurs. We call it a crash syndrome. So it's they are happy, they hug each other, and they also tend to cough on each other. But normally with your immune system, which is, if you are immunocompetent, your immune system is intact, if I should put it that way, they should be able to fight their common colds. And I think most people should also be a bit relaxed about cold. So the natural process is about 5 to 7 days, or maybe sometimes 10 days. And children are actually allowed to have up to 8 episodes a year. That could be normal.
8 episodes of cold?
Yes.
Same as flu?
You see, the epidemics are different.
Okay.
I'm not talking about the epidemics. So the epidemics,
you tend to mix both. That's what I'm asking.
Yes, the
is flu the same as the cold?
Yes. So the in the Western world they would say flu, and then we say catarrh, common cold. So viral infections mostly. The ones we tend to fear are the ones that caused by influenza. So those are the ones that come as epidemics. So we should just be alert when it's like 50 people suddenly calm down. Okay. Then it's like one of these more virulent organisms, the influenza, which can change its form quickly and become more harmful, if I should put it that way. So yes, when it happens in epidemics, then we need to manage it separately. But for what happens, the same flu, but you go to school, your child comes back coughing, it may take 5 days, 10 days for it to resolve. You cannot take them away from school. It's something they need it to develop their immune system. So you would know that a lot of these viruses, once you calm down with it, later on you are immune. So they shouldn't run away from it. However, it may be a signal that they have what is called some immune deficiency. So if it's persistent, it comes, it doesn't go. Usually what I said is that by day 10 it should go back to normal. The child should stop coughing completely. If it persists beyond the 2nd week, the 3rd week, the symptoms are the same, then they need to seek help, because some of these children may be exhibiting that symptom because their immune system is not intact, and they can be seen separately. So yes, if the mom has genuine concerns, I think we can address it for them.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Diary on Love 99.5 FM, and my guest this afternoon, Dr. Sandra Kwarteng Owusu. She's a pediatric pulmonologist, with the Department of Child Health, Komfo Teaching Hospital. And we'll be having a fantastic time talking about children and the common ailments that they do have. Around this time, the weather is very hot, and we've been talking about that one as well, how you can keep them hydrated, the common infections that you should be looking out for. When should you be concerned? When should you say that, okay, it's okay? But doc says flu, what we call cold, is common. Unless it goes beyond a certain threshold, then you should be worried. Persistent, symptoms like the headaches and the temperature rising. If you give paracetamol, it keeps coming back, then you have to take that child to the hospital. Should be worried about other infections around this period of time.
Yes, so beyond the common colds could be other bacterial infections like pneumonias, where beyond coughing they tend to breathe very fast, and you can even see, if you look at their chest, you see that it seems to sink in and rise up and sink in, and they are just not themselves. They refuse to eat, they may be throwing up. Then that becomes a different issue. You need to seek help immediately. I also talked about bacterial meningitis, which may around this time be common, which would start with typical headaches, neck pain, neck stiffness, not being able to move around. The headaches is unremitting. You don't seem to be able to get over it, even with giving your antipyretics. Immediately they need to seek help. So there are lots of other conditions that could also be made worse. I already mentioned asthma, that around this time the environmental exposures like dust, and even we say extremes of temperature. So when there's heating like this, it could be triggers which can make your underlying problems like asthma worse. So that also need to be addressed. And yes, so those are some of the common respiratory problems that could be worse. And I also mentioned that the premature babies, if they've just gone home, this is a good time to be extra alert. Not that any other time you shouldn't be alert, but be alert. You need to look at them. If things change, they start coughing and breathing fast, they have fever, then you need to please seek help immediately, because they have a lot of things in their lungs that may not be so well established, and any infection could be blown out of proportion.
One mom sent me this. It says, is there a way of preventing or reducing the incidence of infections with our babies 3 months to 12 months?
Yes, so the ways of reducing the infections, you need to ensure that one, they are eating well, breastfeeding them well, especially the little ones, breastfeed them well, and also get their immunizations. I know there's a lot of talk about immunizations not being good, immunizations being harmful. Immunizations have done so much for us, so we need to continue to encourage people, get your children immunized. Immunization can help prevent a lot of these infections, pneumonias that we are mentioning, measles. We haven't seen measles in a long time because we are immunizing our children. So general things, and then avoid some exposures. If they are too little, maybe you can avoid a lot of crowded areas. When we return from the funerals, after we've shaking hands with a lot of people, you need to wash your hands. So generally when you return from work, when the children come back from school, they want to play with the little ones, encourage them to wash their hands before that, and then when they use the bathrooms and the toilets, they need to also wash their hands. So general preventive measures would help.
And I know some parents have adopted this. They put a hand sanitizer, a big one, on the table. So if you visit and you want to touch the baby, you have to rub some before you touch the baby. I think that is precaution is always the best. But how do you know, as small as they are, how do you know if they have a particular infection?
Okay, so as small as they are, the common things that would happen to them is infections. As we still mentioned, it still starts, viral infections tend to be high in this young age group. So when they have the colds, it will start with the cough, it will start with fever, and then they may refuse to breastfeed, they may throw up after feeding, and they would cry a lot. So those are all signals. Sometimes too, they may not cry, they just are quiet. They are not themselves. You know that they are overly quiet. This quiet is beyond what is normal for them, and they may be suffering in their own corner. So then they tend to be very sleepy. They sleep in a whole lot. They slept for more than 3 hours and they didn't wake up to breastfeed. You need to go check on them. Don't just say, oh, today it's a good day for me. Yes. So sometimes beyond what is normal for the child, get worried. If they tend not to be so quiet and they become too quiet, they are dull, they are not playful, you haven't heard them crying the whole day, it may also be a signal that they are not well. So you know your child best, and then you would pick the signs in between. But breathing fast, always watch their chest. When you bathe them, watch their chest, how they are breathing. And sometimes some of them, when they are struggling a lot, they tend to rely on the head, so they tend to what we call head bobbing. So don't wait. A lot of the times some of the parents say, oh, it would go away. So we wait and wait and wait, and until we realize that it's too late.
How should the breathing be?
The breathing
very fast?
No. So babies tend to breathe slightly faster than usual, but it shouldn't be that there's a line between the chest and we say the stomach, but it is the abdomen. So you shouldn't see a line. If the chest sinks in when they take each breath, or you see that it's like holes come between the ribs, yes, the recessions, then that is a signal that they are struggling to breathe and that you need to take them to the hospital. If you look at the nostrils too, it seems to open up widely with each breath. That's also a signal. Or there may even be a hole around their neck. So anytime they take in a breath, it goes in. Those are not normal signals. That's beyond your common cold. They are struggling. So they need help. They need to be sent to the health centers or the hospitals immediately. Those are signals. I think pneumonia we should stress, and then diarrhea too around this time. So the same viruses that could cause the respiratory tract infections, some of them can also cause diarrhea. So we need to be careful. Hand hygiene is so crucial around this time. So naturally, you know that if somebody has diarrhea, it means that fecal matter has gone into the oral cavity. And
in this era where fecal matter is thrown everywhere,
so it's important that we be very, very alert. Diarrhea, I must also stress that around this time we have a lot of viral infections, some of them also diarrhea. Immunization has helped us a lot with preventing diarrhea, but they are not completely gone. So diarrhea is also, and they get dehydrated quickly. We've already highlighted that the temperatures are high. So if your child starts passing a lot so by definition, diarrhea is 3 or more loose or watery stools beyond what is normal for the child, except that the tiny ones, when the new ones arrive, they tend to have a lot more loose stools. So I'm not referring to those who have just been born. The newborns, they can have a lot more bowel movement, but when it's just like with every bowel movement, it's just watery, just water that comes out, and it's coming more frequently than is usual for the child. At the same time, they may be vomiting. That is a signal that they are not well, and you need to immediately start with oral rehydration and take them to the hospital to be assessed.
As part of our sanitation enforcement, we met this woman, and she claims that her 6-month-old baby died because of effluent coming from a public toilet, which runs just outside her window. Is it possible?
I think that we may need more information, and we need to delve more into that. So usually the fecal matter needs to be taken in, and then because it's diarrhea, it's from the where we eat, the gastrointestinal tract.
Could the infection be airborne?
Yes, some infections can be airborne, but some of these issues tend to be a bit more complicated, and we need to deal with it on a case-by-case basis. But I think the general thing, so if you're living somewhere that is fecal matter that is exposed, then you need to be extra cautious. Either maybe you can do something about the environment, or you need, when you have little children, you need to, because you know when they start crawling, they move around
and they pick
a lot of things, and then they put it in their mouth because they are in the oral phase. So we just need to be careful.
My guest this afternoon, Dr. Sandra Kwatino, is a pediatric pulmonologist, Department of Child Health, Komfo Teaching Hospital. We've been having quite a session here, and I hope you are enjoying the discussion. You can send us a WhatsApp right now if you have any questions concerning your child. Send your questions and concerns to 0554 031 192. And Osei Manu, you say you are listening to us from inside Fumeswa. Thank you very much for listening. But send your comments to 0554 031 192. You can also give me a call now on 03220 83596 or 97 03220 83596. Now, Doc, let's look at cases you've been seeing at this period. What type of cases are coming to you at the hospital?
Okay, so we are a referral center, so constantly we have numbers above the usual, but around this time we tend to have a lot more cases of respiratory tract infection, particularly in the outpatient department. And then, as I said too, there may be cases of diarrhea. But I must also highlight that we've come very far with immunizations. I mean, 10 years ago, you would see that you would enter our emergency room and it's like everybody is on some fluids, either ORS or receiving IV fluids. We have a lot of cases of pneumonias, bacterial meningitis. But because of immunization, I think generally the numbers have improved. But we may still have some episodes happening. So more viral infections, respiratory tract infection, episodes of diarrhea. In the extreme cases, severe pneumonias, bacterial meningitis, or some environmental conditions making conditions like asthma worse. So it triggers, it makes them worse because of exposures. So around this time, and then the little babies, as I said, the premature babies also, because they may have some underlying problems of the lungs, they may also come in with respiratory problems. So those tend to be common, but generally, we have a big inflow of different conditions coming, but I would highlight these ones.
So you can give me a call 03220 83596. Now we've been talking about the common infections. What if there is a larger danger somewhere? Are there signs that you could see so it will help you as a parent detect it early?
As I said, know your child, know what is, and listen to them. Mostly they would say, oh, he told me he had a headache 2 weeks ago and it was unremitting and I thought it would go away. Yes, we've done a lot with malaria, but it's still a major challenge. Sleeping in your insecticide treated net is still recommended if you have it, and if you can put it up, it's still good. But look at the child. The danger signs for the little ones: refusing to feed, vomiting after feeding. Sometimes they become just limp, they are not active, or in the extreme cases they may even have convulsions. So all those are very major signs. You need to immediately seek help. For the older child, as I said, their cough also may become more severe, associated with fast breathing, and if you look at the chest, it will give you signals that they are struggling to breathe. Severe headaches that are unremitting, which may also be associated with seizures. So conditions vary, and so the signs and symptoms would vary. But if you generally, what would show is that one of these things would appear somewhere, and there are signs that you need to immediately act on them because it could be fatal.
The line to call is 03220 83596. You can also send us a WhatsApp to 0554 031 192. Have there been instances where children have been brought and you feel that no, this one has delayed for such at a point where you cannot do much?
Yes, it continues to happen for different reasons. Our system is a bit different from what pertains in other places, but it can happen. But I must say that for most parents, I must say parents, I'm not saying mothers, I'm saying parents. So the dads, the moms, most of us are doing extremely well. Health-seeking behavior of some parents, fathers more importantly, have changed. I mean, people are doing well, seeking help for their children, and I think that it's something that is commendable. We want to continue to encourage parents, save a little bit of your time to seek help for the child. Sometimes they are not sick, but you can go for a well child visit. That's also just check my child for me to see that they are well. What should I do? And just making sure that they are good. If they are well, they are also well. You don't need to ask for permission to not come to work because your child is sick. And then whatever doctor's appointment you have, please keep it. I think my worry, and recently we lost one of our children in the asthma clinic, and it was so painful for me. I can imagine parents driving their child to the hospital to seek care, and the child not making it to the hospital. Is a major thing. So if your child,
what could have happened?
Because he had an acute exacerbation, he had an attack, and they couldn't arrive in time. So those are major things that I think we need to continue to encourage parents. Do not miss your doctor's appointment. As soon as you miss it, make arrangements to go back. Do not let them run out of the medication. At the very least, they should have the inhalers with them. I mean, that is a life-saving thing. Seek help early. Don't say that, Adiasa, so in the morning we would go. Some airway conditions would usually not give you the time. So that is what I want to encourage all parents. Don't miss your doctor's appointment. If for one reason or the other you cannot make it, go as soon as you can and give information, give feedback. Do not let them run out of their medications that have been prescribed.
I have this message coming in, and it says, please, Doc, if I heard you well, you said when the baby is crying, they must not be shaken to shut them down. So now, what would be the solution?
I said vigorously. Sometimes you
you can hold him. Sometimes you feel like doing it. You feel like shaking them and asking them, "What is wrong with you?"
Please keep quiet here. So I just want to emphasize that if they start crying and you go to them, just the basic things that they are not hungry, breastfeed them, change their diaper, make sure they are not hot. But if they continue to cry and you are certain that they are not ill, then you, the parents, you need to be calm. That is number one. And just make sure they are safe. And sit with them, but do not do extra things just because you want them to keep quiet, because sometimes it may not be helpful. Okay. That's where I was giving the excessive shaking.
Let me pick this caller. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, Kalusha, let's hear you.
If I may ask, can the baby just cry, without any reason? He just cry for crying sake.
How old is that baby?
I'm just asking, can it be possible? But some of them will just cry, and I mean, there's nothing happening to him. I mean, I don't know how to put it, but he just cries for crying sake.
I hear you.
Can it be possible?
Okay. Well, Doc is listening to you. That's the question. Is it possible that some of the babies will just be crying for crying sake, and there's nothing really wrong with them?
I think that they usually cry because of something, except that we cannot tell, because they cannot express themselves. So for the most part, they cry because they are hungry, they want their diapers to be changed. I talked about what our grannies talk about, colic and burping. Some of them are not very scientific. You cannot prove it, but you see that it's some truth in it. And then,
because it happens to me as well, and you've done everything possible for the baby, and it keeps crying uncontrollably and the other time was so strange, crying with high-pitched sounds and graduating for some minutes, and then he stops and goes to sleep. So he was just crying for crying sake. Is that possible?
Yes. Remember I said that the process of falling to sleep is complex. Sleep, if you studied sleep, as simple as we see it as, I want to sleep, I close my eyes and I sleep. It's not so simple for children. And neurologists and developmental pediatricians will tell you that it's a complex process. So sometimes just the falling to sleep, some chemicals that are involved in the brain that are released, it may just make them
They get
uncomfortable.
overwhelmed.
So there's something. It's just that we cannot tell. So it's not that they are crying for nothing. They are crying for a reason. They are not sick that they need to be admitted to the hospital, but some complex processes are happening. So that's why I'm saying we need to be calm. Let them go through the phase, encourage them to go through the phase by just being supportive. Sometimes if you don't understand, you may want to talk to a doctor, and I'm sure they can help. But also they're telling the difference between day and night, which may take a little bit of time for them to settle in. So yes, they've come from a special place and they are looking around trying to get used to the new system. So all those factors contribute to know your baby, and then you can speak to each of these issues separately. But I think that for the most part they will settle down, so you be calm as the parents. Yes.
They just have to be like me. When I was young, I wasn't crying like that.
Okay, we need to go back to your parents and ask them. Some of us really cried a lot, and so and now the dads are doing well by helping to carry them on the shoulder,
don't help the women,
quieting them down.
It's not an easy job.
Yes, but we thank you that you are so helpful these days. I salute most of the fathers.
So that
they
is
are
you
so
say we are thankful.
And one thing I have seen, actually, if I would say it, I haven't documented it scientifically, but you know that when the children are sick and the parents come around, their outcomes tend to improve.
Okay.
So the duration of staying in the hospital and the fact that it could be fatal, there's something we call morbidity and mortality, it seems to have good numbers if the dads are involved. So we salute you. You are doing very well. We want to
equal
encourage
to the dads. Doc says she's grateful. Well, all too soon time is up, but Priscilla Kamasa says thanks very much, Doc. So Thomas Yenimi on Facebook says keeping the environment clean is better than going to the hospital. And Oyibo Boatin from Nebehin says you're watching live from Nebehin. Thank you very much for your comments. But Doc, we are grateful, and I know we'll have another time to talk again coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, and I just want to say that it's that season of giving, and some children would unfortunately spend the Christmas season in the hospitals with their parents. Some may not have as much as most of us do, so it's a good time to give, and we encourage people to, if you are not sure who to give to, come to Kofanochi, come to the Department of Child Health. Little Steps Foundation is a great time to give.
They are doing
donate hundreds of diapers, anything. You can buy monitors for us, anything that can help us support. We can buy a piece of cloth and give to a mom who is sitting by their child in the hospital around this time. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Doc. And personally, I'll do my donation later. Thank you very much. And that's Dr. Sandra Kwatin Owusu. She is a pediatric pulmonologist with the Department of Child Health, Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. My name is Erastus Asaridonko. Thank you very much for listening. This has been the Diary. Kelvin Owusu answer, he doesn't have a child, and I
have a nephew and a niece. I'm a guardian.
They say when you were young, you used to cry uncontrollably without any excuse. Is that true?
Yeah, that's the reason why I play trumpet.
Love Sports.